In this video, I will be talking about transitioning between levels. I will show you how to join an active level, such as you would see in a first-person shooter game, as well as show you how to start a level only after all players have joined, like you would see in many MOBA games. But first, we need to correct that issue where we had duplicate players appearing in our created rooms. A YouTube commenter, Kahayan, I hope I'm saying that right, found that the issue was I was not clearing the users in the current room when joining or creating a new room. The solution is very simple actually. Go into your scripts folder, open up the current room folder, and then open up the player layout group. Okay, so you're going to look for your on joined room method, which is called whenever you join a room. And we're just going to add these few lines. For each transform of type, we're going to call it child in transform. So this is going to loop through every single child in the transform which this script is attached to. And what we're going to do is we're going to destroy each child so that we do not get duplicates. So I'm going to call destroy child.gameObject because child is a transform and you must call destroy on a game object, and semicolon. And save your script, and that's all you have to do. Now let's set up our start match buttons. So go on back to Unity, expand your canvas object in the hierarchy, disable lobby for now so that we can see what's behind it. Select Start Match, and let's rename it to Start Match Sync. Duplicate it, drop the duplicated version just below it, and rename it to Start Match Delayed. As I mentioned, I'm going to show you two ways to transition into the level, so each of these buttons are going to do something different. Go ahead and select Start Match Sync again, and resize it to about half its width. And although you can't see the changes, they are occurring. It's just that they're behind the Start Match Delayed button. So go ahead and select Start Match Delayed and resize it to the other half. And you can rename them if you want. I probably will. So I'm going to name the Start Match Sync to just Start Sync. I'm going to rename the text rather. And I'm going to change this one to Start Delayed. Okay, so we have to set up a couple things real quick. First, we need to jump into our method when connected to the master. I don't remember what that was under, so let me find out. Alright, so that's under our lobby network script, so go ahead and open that up. And we need to do Photon network automatically sync scene equals true. If this is true, whenever you join a room, it will automatically sync you to whichever scene that the master client is currently on. So set that to true, and then we need to jump into our current room canvas. And going back to Unity, that's attached to the current room game object right here. So open up current room canvas, and we now need an activity for whenever you click the Start Sync button. I'm going to call it public void on click Start Sync. And the transition is going to be very easy. It is Photon network dot load level and level number. So the next level will be level 1, and I'll show you how we determine that in just a second. So type that up, hit save, and go back to Unity. Now we need to make a new scene, which will be our game level. So jump into your scenes folder, right click, create scene, just going to call it game, and open it up. So it's going to be an empty scene just like this, and all I'm going to do, just to know, so I know it's working, is I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to zero out the position. I'm going to scale it up just a little bit so it's easy to see. And let me check my camera. Okay, perfect. So it should be right in front of your camera. If it's not, select the main camera object in the hierarchy and make sure it's at 0, 0, -10. Save your scene, and then go to File, Build Settings, and we need to add the open scene, our game scene, to the build settings. Now you'll notice whenever I added it, it's below main and it has the number 1. That is the number of the scene you're loading. So if you ever forget what scene is what, just go to your build settings and you can find it there. Let's go ahead and head back to our main scene and select your Start Sync button. And you shouldn't have anything here yet. It should look like this right here. If it does say list is empty, go ahead and click the plus sign where it says none object. You want to use the current room script, so I'm gonna select current room in the hierarchy and drag it over, just like we've done with other buttons. Under function, current room canvas, on click start sync. Now select your lobby game object, the one we disabled previously, re-enable it so it's on top, and save your scene. Now we're going to go to build and run just to confirm that it's working. And I'm also going to play within the editor as well. Okay, so let me make a room. I'm going to join it on the editor. I can see both players are in here, and now I'm going to hit start sync. And you can see that it loaded up both players at the same time. Now if I turn off the editor and hit play again, once it connects to the network, you'll see the room is still there, and when I hit test room, it automatically loads me into the scene. Okay, let's close out of both these windows. Now I need to add an action for the start delayed button. So I'm going to go over to scripts, current room, and open up current room canvas. I'll make a new method called public void on click start delayed. And first thing I want to do is hide the room and prevent additional people from joining. If this is a locked game type, I do not want uninvited guests. So I'm going to do Photon network dot room dot is open equals false. Photon network dot room dot is visible equals false. This is basically doing the same thing as a room state change button, except we're permanently locking it to the disabled state. Then, like before, we just need to call the load level method. Now to make sure that other players do not sync up whenever the master loads a level, we're going to go back into the lobby network script, and where it says automatically sync scene, currently it's true, change that to false. Go ahead and save everything. And of course we need to assign an action for when you click the button now. So go back to your editor, select start delayed, and again this might be filled out, it might be empty. If it's empty, just hit the plus sign. For the object, like before, we're going to drag in current room to get the current room script from it. And we're going to use the on click start delayed. Save. I believe we're done with the current room object for now. So let's go ahead and re-enable lobby. And now we need to add some actions to our player network. Remember that the player network is do not destroy on load, which means it will persist throughout all scenes in the game. So go ahead and find your player network script and open it up. Now we need to set up something that will let your game know when the scene change has occurred. So first we're going to make a method for actions to perform when the change does occur, and I'm going to call that private void on scene finish loading. And this is a callback which Unity documents do provide the parameters, but to save you some time, I'm going to tell you that it is of scene type, and you might have to use the using Unity Engine.scene management if you have not already got it up top. So scene type, I'm going to call the variable scene, load, scene mode, and mode. So this is going to be information about the scene that loaded in, and this is going to be how it was loaded in. For now, I am going to leave this empty. Now under awake, I need to register with Unity to call on scene finish loading when a scene has loaded. So I'm going to hit enter a few times below player name, and I'm going to type in scene manager dot scene loaded plus equals on scene finished loading. So this creates a delegate using the scene manager class, which is built into Unity. Whenever scene loaded occurs, it will call my on scene finished loading method. I'm not going to go into the details of delegates. They're not really something that's Unity specific or Photon specific, but they are very handy. So if you have some spare time, feel free to look into that. I'm going to add two more methods just below the on scene finish loading. I'm going to call the first one private void master loaded game. I'm going to call the second one private void non-master loaded game. So one of these is going to be called when the master has loaded the scene, and the other one's going to be called when a regular client has loaded the scene. So now within on scene finished loading, I'm going to put if scene.name equals game, because that is the name of the second scene we have made. And below that, if Photon network is master client. So if the scene name is game and it is the master client that is receiving this callback, I'm going to call master loaded game. If not the master client, I'm going to call non-master loaded game. Save everything. Now I need to add code to those two methods, master loaded game and non-master loaded game. Under master loaded game, I'm going to tell all the other players that they should load the scene. To do that though, I need to add a PhotonView to my player network script, or game object rather. So let's go back to the editor. With player network selected, click add component, PhotonView, and set the view ID to 999. Since we are going to be using this throughout the entire game, we want to set it really high to make sure that there's no conflicts. Save your scene and then go back to your script. Let's make a class-wide variable, and we're going to do it of PhotonView type. Now I'm also going to call it PhotonView. Under awake, I'm going to set PhotonView by doing PhotonView equals get component PhotonView. Now under our master loaded game method, we're going to use PhotonView to make a call to all the other players that are in the room. So I'm going to do PhotonView.rpc, and I haven't actually added the method yet, but I'm going to call it rpc load game others photon targets dot others. So this is a new line, something you have not yet seen. RPC is a method of the PhotonView component, and what it does is it lets you broadcast a message to various targets. It could be others, it could be the master client, it could be all. You can see here that when I hit the period, there's quite a few options. But in this instance, the master is already loaded in the game, so we want to tell the other players to load in as well. And this RPC load game others method is going to be very simple. Just put it a few lines below the non-master loaded game method, and that will be private. So private void RPC load game others. And what we're going to do in here is going to be very simple. It's just Photon network dot load level 1. So we're just telling all the other clients to load level number 1 whenever the master loads into the game level. Now, in order to have a method be capable of contacting other players or other clients, masters, whatever it may be, it has to have the following up top: pun RPC. If you do not have that, it will not work. Putting RPC underscore in front of the method is not mandatory, although it is in some type of networking, so keep that in mind. But in this case it's not. However, it's good practice to do so anytime you're making a network call. I need the master to keep track of how many clients have joined the game so that when the room is full it can set up or initiate the game. So I'm going to need a class-wide variable up top. I'm going to make it of integer type, and I'm just going to call it players in game. I'm going to set the default to 0. And let's go ahead and add a new method just below RPC load game others, and this is going to be a network call as well, so you have to add pun RPC up top. Now I'm going to call it private void RPC loaded game scene. And what this is going to do is it's going to be called on the master only, and it's going to tally up how many players in the game versus how many should be in the game, and when they're at the right amount it will of course start the game. So now we need to make this call whenever a client joins the game scene. So as we know, whenever the scene loads, it checks if the scene name is game, and if it's master that joined the game, it will call MasterLoadedGame, and if it's a client, it'll say non-MasterLoadedGame. So we are naturally going to be in the non-MasterLoadedGame method, and we're going to do PhotonView RPC, and this method we just made, so RPC loaded game scene. And we're going to call this on Photon targets dot master client. Only the master needs to be aware in this instance whenever a client has loaded the scene. So let's jump back down to RPC loaded game scene. First thing I'm going to do is increase the number of players in the game, which is our integer variable up above. And now I'm going to check if they're at the proper value of how many people are expected. To do that, I am going to do if players in game equals Photon network dot player list dot length, which means if the number of players in game are equal to the length of the player list, then all the players must be in the game. I believe someone asked me about this earlier on one of the comments on how to check how many players are in the room. This is one way to go about it. For now, I'm not going to really do much whenever they are all in the game, but rather just print a message so I know that it's working. You can say whatever you want, really. Mine says all players are in the game scene. Now what's going to happen is whenever the master loads the scene, which they will do first, it's going to tell all the other clients to load the scene, and when they do load the scene, they'll tell the master that they're in it, which will increase this and compare it against the length of players. Now if you have the master and the client, that's 2 players, and if one client loads in, this variable will be 1, not 2, so this will fail. So what we need to do is set players in game to 1 whenever the master connects. So let's go up to MasterLoadedGame and set players in game equals 1. And if you ever leave your room or leave the game and go back to the lobby, you have to make sure that you reset your players in game variable, because this does persist throughout the entire game, so it will only change when you tell it to. Save all your scripts, and then let's go back to the editor, and I'm going to do a test build. So I'm going to go to File, Build, and Run. going to play it within the editor as well. I'm opening up my console window so that I can see what's going on. Making a test room, joining it, and I'm going to use the start delayed button. Okay, so both players are in the scene. As you can see, you have registered that all players are in game scene. And to show you that this is working by using the code we just made rather than automatically syncing up, I'm going to comment out a line real quick. Don't bother doing this because I'm going to go quick and I don't want you to mess up your code. So let's see. I don't care about this. Let me just comment it, go back. So I just disabled the code that handles the scene changing, registering, telling other players to join, and whatnot. So whenever I try this up, it shouldn't work. The master will still join the room or the new scene, but the client will not. And as you can see, the client is still stuck. And if I actually leave the room, you notice that the listing is no longer there because as we did earlier, we told it to not be open and not be visible. So this appears to be working as intended. If you want players to load in with the master automatically, just go back to your scripts and comment out the lines like I have here. You can leave these methods inside the class. It's not going to hurt anything. You can keep them there for your reference if you like. Also, do not forget to go over to the lobby network class and change automatically sync scene from false to true. I, however, am going to continue manually to load players into the scene. So I'm going to go back to player network and uncomment my lines and save the script. That way I can show you how to perform additional actions whenever all players are in the game.